Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We're talking about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And I'm back today on a Wednesday with our resident engineer, Mike Herzog. How's it going today, Mike?
Always happy to be here, David, on this what's turning out to be kind of a beautiful day out there after a couple rounds of showers this morning.
Yeah, we're certainly getting our our summer rain.
Yeah,
It's
apparently.
been
Yeah, it's
interesting. Saving on the water bill, that's for sure. Having to run the
tell
sprinklers.
we're a couple of Midwesterners here talking about how much rain we're getting, and
Yeah, I know.
good,
Well,
good this time of year for the crops. Yeah,
we live in a part of the country where we have a yard.
yeah, we're guilty. We are guilty of watching the weather.
All right. I'm going to start out talking about hotels. Let's talk about Hilton hotels. So here's something interesting.
Mhm.
So when people are searching for amenities at a hotel, the top amenity a hotel can have is an EV charger. It
Okay.
beats free breakfast. It beats swimming pools. It's absolutely, do they advertise that they have
EV charging available.
EV charging? And Hilton made a commitment. I remember when we first started doing this show a couple of years ago,
Mhm.
they were committed to putting something like 2,000 hotels to have EV charging. And they're saying that's really starting to pay off. They use a company called Blink pretty heavily for charging. And they also have something going on, I'm pretty sure, with Tesla as well. Yeah, but I think it's just level 2 charging.
Yeah.
And they may have some level 1 as well. But anyways, their global head of sustainability said that travelers who search are more likely to complete a reservation than searching if they search for EV charging than other things like pools, on-site dining, free breakfast, stuff like that. And then it kind of makes sense. I mean,
I would 100%. I don't really take my EV out of the city. Most of the time it's just a space thing. By the time I've got kids and suitcases and things like that, but that would 100% influence my decision. Because that's when I talk about it, like, well, so from us, Kansas City is about 2.5, 3 hours away when everything's said and done. So full charge, might need to make a pit stop, something along those. But if I knew I could just park that thing overnight and it would charge and be fine in the morning, that would influence my decision 100%. Where instead of it's, well, then I need to wake up in the morning before we leave. We need to go find a spot and we're going to hang out for half an hour while it's supercharged, whatever. But if it's, no, I'm going to wake up in the morning fully charged and not have to worry about it, great. And it's secure and I know where it's at and it's adjacent to the hotel. If I was searching for EV charging, like that 100% would influence my decision on where to book.
I'd love to see some data, of how much charging people are actually doing at the hotels. Just, if they're providing free level 2 charging, so people are adding 40, 50 miles of range, what that real expense is compared to, providing breakfast, people, stuff like that. I bet it's really not that significant.
It's not much at all. I mean, it's once you get the charger in there, I mean, from the end, it's a couple of bucks. I mean, it really is not.
If that,
if that would be a high end. I mean, it's really not that big of a deal.
I'd be surprised if each level 2 charger was doing more than $30 a month in actual electrical costs for the hotel, because they're going to be commercial. They're going to get cheaper electricity to start with. It's probably not going to have 10 hours of charging a day. If it did have 10 hours a day, depending on where you're at, that might be anywhere from $1 to $2 a day. So maybe it's somewhere between $40, $50 a month.
If that, yeah.
I'd be surprised if it got used.
And that's at
that much.
Getting a good usage rate out of the thing. No, I for a place like a hotel where you have, they call it like an idle captive audience or an idle captive customer, like they're stuck here and they're not doing anything. I think it makes a ton of sense for putting those things in. We talk about like grocery stores, movie theaters, places like that where it's, I'm going to be parked here for a while and doing something. Those applications make a ton of sense.
No, but anyways, it's a convenience thing, right? Because people always talk about, you can't road trip in an EV or whatever. And it's like, well, people are making efforts to make it easier. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad to hear that it's paying off, and they're actually getting some supporting numbers behind it of like, this is increasing sales because we're offering this.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about, I've got some stock news to talk about today, because several companies released second quarter results, and Rivian was one of them. And it's...
Can I guess how they're doing? Is it
sure
looking good? Looking a little bit better? Good.
Oh, yeah. So it had its second quarter of gross profit in quarter one. So this would be the third quarter of gross profit in quarter three. Now, that means that they're making money on the vehicles themselves. It's not but still not quite enough to cover the corporate
overheads, all the background stuff. Yeah. But
they're making money on the vehicles, which is a big plus. I mean, Tesla's been the one that's always been making money on the damn EVs, and none of the other companies for a while have figured it out.
If you're losing money per unit of sale, it's going to be hard to turn a profit.
Right.
It just doesn't work. So like step one, like, are we actually making money on these cars?
Right.
Our production costs and material costs and everything. Like,
the joke is always, well, they'll make it up on volume, but if you're losing money per car, it's a challenge to have that fixed.
For that math to work itself out.
So let's see. In the second quarter, Rivian produced just shy of 6,000. It was like 5,979 vehicles at its manufacturing facility in Normal, Illinois, but they delivered 10,661 vehicles. So that's interesting. They delivered 4,600 more vehicles than they produced for the quarter. So I guess they had produced some oversupply. Let me see. Production during the second quarter for both the R1 products and commercial vans was limited due to a variety of supply chain complexities, partially driven by shifts in trade policy. Well, that's probably a big thing. The CEO, RJ Scaringe, said, this quarter made significant progress in R2 development and testing. We also substantially completed the expansion of the Normal, Illinois facility and have begun installing manufacturing equipment in preparation for our start of production. Along with the R2, our autonomy platform continues to be one of our major focus areas, and we're excited to share more of our roadmap later this year. Preparations for the launch of the R2 remain on track. That's a 1.1 million square foot facility. That's not a cheap plant. That's some significant dollars was put into that facility. It's now substantially complete, and installation of production tooling and for component manufacturing is underway. So it tells me, much like Tesla, they're making a lot of their own parts, which is not the situation with the big three automakers in the US.
That is not the supply chain model. No.
Yeah. And that's pretty much true of pretty much all of your gas cars, worldwide. They have this enormous supply chain of other companies that provide them individual parts that go into it. It's just that EVs have way fewer parts.
Well, they have fewer parts, and I mean that was such an industry. I mean, it's 100 years in the making, 100 plus years in the making of how Detroit ended up in that model. And they may be independent companies, but I make this part for Ford. So I like the consolidation of some of that of, hey, we can reduce costs if this is all under the same roof, rather than people taking their cuts as things continue to trade hands.
But overall, that's good news for Rivian.
I like Rivian. It's one of those, we've been doing this for a couple of years, and they've been out on the road for a while, and I'm not hearing negative things. I talk to people who drive them. They seem to like them. They're holding up pretty well. I like the way they look. I think they're a sharp looking vehicle. I'm excited for what they're going to do. And
the biggest complaint I've heard is they don't have a regular USB plug. They just have the little USB-C plugs in them. It's like, oh, there's a first world problem for you right there.
It's you know what? It's the dumb stuff in cars where it's always like a dang compass, like that little E or N or S on my rear view mirror. Why doesn't everybody do that? I just want to.
I know, it seems so simple, doesn't it?
So simple, but it's one of those little things. Put a compass on the damn car. It does everything else under the sun. Just put it so I can see it.
No, that is kind of funny. I have been in plenty of cars that didn't have a compass, and it just seemed really odd.
Yeah,
You know,
little things like, why wouldn't you just add, or like that? Why wouldn't, gosh, put in a different adapter in one of your 18 of them that's probably sitting around the vehicle somewhere.
so I want to report on one, and this is kind of more the solar business. Okay, has always had kind of a weird reputation, and so I found a company that just did its annual report. It's called ENLT Renewable Energy, but they are a big grid scale solar company.
I'm not familiar with them, but they're a big one. Okay.
They're based out of Tel Aviv, so they're traded on the Nasdaq as ENLT. Okay, so anyways, the reason I picked this one is because, well, it's a solar company that's out there doing some. For the 6 months ended June 30th, their revenue and income was $265 million. Okay, that's not small, which was up 46% from the previous 6 months of the last year. Their net income on 265 million, 107 million, which was up 216%. So they more than doubled it from the previous year. So it probably had been something like 45 million went to 107 million. Their cash flow from operations was 91 million, which was about the same year over year. But it's like, that's kind of the economics of solar, and that's something that people look at solar as some kind of scam or whatever. It's like, this looks like a pretty solid company to invest in. Now, I'm not seeing, in what I'm reading, it's not giving me actual stock numbers for it. I'm not going to go about evaluating that. Actually, you know what? It trades at $23.83. I do see it, but it's got a 2.8 billion US market cap. So, it's still a pretty substantial company that's in the solar space. And I just thought that'd be kind of interesting to bring up, because I think it's hard for people sometimes to know what's going on there.
It's the technology improvements, and especially at bulk, and especially at grid scale and large projects, and reducing some of the overheads on a lot of those things. It's at price parity. And if it's not there, it's pretty dang close to other generation sources and where it's at now. Stateside, absolutely. Is it going to take a hit as a lot of the tax credits start to go away? Yes. I mean, just to be frank, to make a lot of those projects viable and executable, that did what it was supposed to do. It incented people to do this. Like, we got to sweeten the pot a little bit. Otherwise, the numbers aren't quite there. But internationally, worldwide, even the United States, it's pretty dang close. It's not EVs yet. Like EVs, I'm comfortable making the statement that price points there. Like, even without subsidy or anything, like they've figured it out.
They're getting there. Well, I think on Monday we're gonna hit some big news. I'm debating about whether I should stream.
I think so. Live broadcast.
Yeah, I probably should.
Yeah.
It's because it's going to be real interesting to see how that news plays out, because Ford really does have a $25,000 basic electric truck. That's going to be a pretty big deal, because they already, you can get a stripped down Ford Maverick for $28,000 new. So, I mean, based on the economics of EVs, you'd think they could make that as an EV for a few $1,000 less.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But see, the Maverick's a 4-door. And this was kind of the thing, like with Slate. Yeah. Slate's trying to do a 2-door. Well, Ford should just do a 2-door. I mean, to me, that makes a lot of sense. Everybody doesn't need a 4-door pickup truck that, that is enormous, right?
Now you got me excited about that news, just because Farley's been like made bold statements over the past 6 months, and everything he's been talking about, it's EVs. China's eating our lunch. Like, this is not okay. We're not going to exist unless we do something, big and bold and interesting. And yeah, let's see what big and bold and interesting is.
Well, over the last 15 years, Ford has cut out all of the vehicles where they didn't make big money. So they make big money on Explorers, on F-150s, you know, and a couple of other vehicles. They got rid of all their cars but the Mustang. So the Mustang was the only car they kept. Yeah, they got rid of the Taurus, the Crown Vic. I mean, you think about it. They were selling Crown Vics, if nothing else. That's when you see one on the road, you slow down. If you see an old one, it's just out of habit.
Just that profile on there. Oh shoot!
You know, you see a Chevy Caprice Classic, you slow down. You know,
slow down.
Even if you know they haven't been a police car for 20 years.
Yeah.
I still am always kind of a little weirded out when I see a Crown Vic going down the road, especially they'll have the little light on the side,
like that spotlight on the side.
Yeah, I know enough to know that somebody bought that at an auction. Okay, but you know, it's just kind of funny. When I used to own a security guard company, I had 3 Crown Vics in my fleet. And, you know, it's a vehicle people recognize as law enforcement.
100%.
Yeah. 100%. But anyways, all right. So BWXT is a company that manufactures nuclear components for reactors that go on military ships and in some other applications. Well, yesterday their stock shot up 18%. And it's like, that's not normal. Okay. So it's doing a little bit of checking around. So the Sean Duffy is both the Secretary of Transportation and the acting NASA administrator. So yesterday he made it a announcement there's a plan to fast track nuclear reactors on the moon.
I saw that. I did see that headline pop up. Okay.
So I went looking for news on it, and it's really interesting how everybody has a different opinion about everything, right? MSNBC, the article is titled, "We Don't Need Nuclear Reactors on the Moon." And it says, Sean Duffy's plan to fast track nuclear reactors on the moon is a dangerous distraction. You know, and it's really funny. And you and I were privately before the call, we were discussing the differences between what people perceive as nuclear energy when they see cooling towers, Gen 2 nuclear, and most people have no idea that 4th generation or even 3rd generation nuclear even exists. I mean, 3rd generation is still water cooled. Okay. 4th generation is not. They're not going to do water cooled on the moon.
No,
and one of the big issues is 2nd generation is really human operator intensive, and 4th generation does not use humans, and so it takes the human error factor. There's certainly a lot of issues with older style nuclear power plants and problems that have to be maintained and fixed, and you can't have all the operators die off or go out on strike, or you can't start shelling it with artillery or bombing them. You know, there's some inherent dangers to cooling stack style nuclear reactors.
I will say, people who watch The Simpsons and their experience with a nuclear power plant is Homer Simpson in front of a panel with knobs and flashing lights. That's still what control rooms look like. It's our nuclear fleet. Most of the plants that have been around, that is still what the control room looks like. It is a manual old light bulb that has to be replaced, and switches and dials and knobs. It's not new and digital and everything. I mean, it is still very much a board that somebody is sitting there turning and operating devices.
Most of those plants were built in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. And there's still, I mean, you can't overhaul it. They take a couple of weeks of outage every couple of years, and that's just to do the maintenance. I mean, they're kind of stuck. So all that's to say, when you're saying what are we going to do with nuclear on the moon, like, it's not going to be a Homer Simpson Springfield power plant up there with astronauts, you know, flipping switch. It's very different. What people don't like, our Navy's nuclear powered. I mean, we have now it's older technology. It's not even this new stuff, but like, from a military application, if we want to land on the moon, we're going to put a nuclear reactor up there. I mean, we put them in the middle of the Arctic. I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah. And the new stuff is I'm not going to say it's simple, but there's new technology that doesn't need human interaction, and it's able to just keep being powered. And these reactors they're talking about, while I didn't see anything getting specific, I'm going to guess it's like 1 megawatt reactors. Okay,
Yeah, it's just
really small. This is
we need power up there. We want reliable power if we're gonna do anything. Yeah.
so that would be a 1 megawatt hour reactor would be approximately a box that'd be about 6 feet long, 3 feet high, 3 feet deep.
Mhm.
That'd be the entire nuclear reactor would fit in that size box, 6 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot. Okay, so it's roughly 2 cubic yards per megawatt hour of reactor. So that's not really big, although I don't specifically see much, but the MSNBC article, just funny. It's like they use nuclear materials such as plutonium-238, which gives off heat used to generate electric for small probes that, and they're trying. It's a bit bigger than a coffin, not much bigger than a coffin.
Come on, Owen.
It'd be a coffin for somebody short and wide.
just the size reference. I guess I can't think of anything else, but
it'd be 2 washing machines. Okay, let's just call it 2 washing machines.
Yeah, your washer dryer combo.
Yeah, this is an American show. We use American weights and measures. We use football fields, washing machines,
filters.
Well, and we have the new one, the Hummer, which is a 200 kilowatt hours of energy. So that's my own.
I mean, the moon comments in general, like, is it like, of course it's a distraction. What do you think political machines have done since the beginning of time? Yeah, they put out a provocative statement and throw it out. We're going to do this. And MSNBC and whoever else, did you take the bait? Yes. You dedicated time to it and everything. Are they actually pursuing nuclear reactors on the moon? Somebody probably said it in the meeting. Yeah, let's think about it. Let's see how we're doing.
You even have a Maddox. I'm not sure what that refers to. That one went over our heads. It's funny because I have the Hummer, and then I have the Tuber and the Luber. We're going to talk about Luber in a little bit too.
I haven't heard that one yet.
Oh yeah, well,
this is a
I'll explain it when we get to.
I don't know where you're going.
Hey, we're coming up with new acronyms for different things that we expect to become regular.
Is that like a Lyft Uber merger? The Luber.
Luber is it's Lucid and Uber.
Okay. Greg Maddox, obscure
pitching stat. Yeah, I don't know what. So what is the definition of a Maddox then? You're going to have to tell us that one, Owen, because our listeners are going to want to know.
It was a great pitcher for the Braves for a long time. But...
Yep. Let's see. But I just thought it was funny. So anyways, it was good news for BWXT because they're the company that would end up ultimately manufacturing this.
Triggered that
It's not even a 1 megawatt. They're looking to do a 100 kilowatt reactor. Okay. It didn't say.
So I guess if that's what you would have to do in a containment and get it up there on a shuttle, like start small, but
yeah. So this would be 5 years ahead of the announced plans of Russia and China. So Russia and China both intend to do the same thing by 2035. We're trying to do it we're trying to do it by 2030. I think we can do it. I mean, the technology exists. I've seen the number of companies that throwing less than 100 pitches in a game is called a Maddox.
That's pretty dang good stat.
Yeah.
That sounds like Greg Maddox efficiency right there.
Yeah. Let's see. But anyways, it's just funny because I see wild reactions on videos that are discussing nuclear, because I can just tell it's like, yeah, everybody's comparing it to old nuclear. and they don't know about new nuclear. I saw another company called that wasn't one of my topics, but called Horizon, which is a company over in the EU that's trying to raise $800 million, and they simply want to They were saying that I think that the EU has 40 years worth of nuclear waste that they want to reprocess and use in their reactor system, which they said it would take 40 years for Europe to burn through it all. And if their system was using the US could do it for 100 years.
Like based on the fuel we've already spent.
Yeah, we have a ridiculous amount of spent nuclear fuel.
Energy out of this thing.
Yeah, like I said before, if we had, what do they call them? Fast reactors and breeder reactors and all that, and we were recycling our spent uranium, then what is it? We'd have 1/4 of nuclear waste by the time it gets all used up. We could squeeze like 75% more radioactivity out of it and use it in the process rather than, leaving it out there. And it's just, it's still not zero, right? We were talking about this. It's not like
it's not. You're still going to have something left over. Yeah.
I've had people think that somehow that SMRs get rid of nuclear waste. They don't, but what eventually happens. So people's ideas like you have all of these new nuclear reactors and you have this much more nuclear waste.
All the old waste.
Yeah. So there's still some issue with that. If you quadrupled the amount of nuclear reactors, you'd have 4 times as much waste. If you then go back through and you reprocess it all, you still have about the same amount of nuclear waste. It's just more energy. That's funny about the exaggerated half-lives. I mean, the big thing to me is, why did they rebuild Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan? They're both thriving cities, yet we nuked them, and it's like I was under the impression you wouldn't be able to live there for thousands of years, and so apparently, there's something different there. I don't know. But I don't know about the half-lives are exaggerated, but obviously if you go into Chernobyl, and there's all these areas you can't go into because the radioactivity just of the dirt.
Yeah.
So, I guess it just depends on where you're going, right? Maybe they scraped all the dirt out of Nagasaki and Hiroshima and moved it somewhere else. I don't know.
I think Fukushima, they did, right? I thought around there they moved a whole bunch of dirt and did, like, that's about the only way to do it.
They probably did. And I had another one. This was kind of interesting. Company on the New York Stock Exchange is NXE. It's Next Gen Energy Limited. It's a Canadian company. It's also on the Toronto Stock Exchange as NXE as well. But Next Gen Energy announces doubling of contracted sales volumes with 5 million pound uranium offtake contract with a major U.S. utility. That's 5 million pounds of uranium over 5 years. That sounds like a lot of uranium. I don't know how much it takes to do processing, but we now have a place going in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, at the old Oak Ridge National Laboratories,
out there.
And to start processing uranium in the United States, because we haven't done it in the US since like the 90s or something like that. All of the uranium's processed in Kazakhstan, and so apparently we don't want to do that anymore, which I think is good. But I thought that was just kind of interesting that there's big companies out there in the uranium space. They just obviously they've been existing without dealing with the United States. Because the United States, even though it has the most nuclear reactors, it hasn't been adding any more reactors. Let me see here. I want to get on to Lucid. Okay, so Lucid also announced second quarter results. They produced 3,863 vehicles in quarter 2. Now, a couple of years ago, they only produced, I think it was like 3 years ago, only produced like 1,500. Then the next year was like 9,000. So this is, on schedule to produce at least 15,000. Still not a whole lot.
Yeah.
It's still kind of a real small manufacturer, but they delivered 3,300 vehicles in Q2, which was up 38% from the year before. So that's still a pretty big jump.
Yeah, that's good.
Revenue in Q2 of 259 million, not huge by car standards or public companies. They ended the quarter with 4.86 billion in liquidity, meaning cash or cash equivalents. Yeah, so they got plenty of money. They had a diluted net loss per share of 24 cents. I mean, they're not profitable, but I remember a couple of years ago they were taking a loss of on average of $300,000 per car.
Ooh.
Okay, I mean, it was just nasty. It was nasty. But most of that was research and development, expanding their facilities for manufacturing,
developing factories, manufacturing processes, all of that stuff. Yeah.
So their outlook for 25, though, they expect to produce between 18 to 20,000 vehicles. They were prior guidance of hoping to hit 20,000, but they expect to be somewhere between 18 and 20. So that was kind of a slower quarter. Now they're the ones that are owned predominantly by the Saudi royal family.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're preparing to build over there, but there were some things. So they launched their next generation robotaxi partnership that I call Luber. That will see Uber deploy a minimum of 20,000 Lucid Gravity vehicles equipped with Neuro driver level 4 autonomy. Neuro is another company that's in the autonomous vehicle space. Has a nuclear plant ever made a profit here? Oh, I'm sure that. I mean, they're owned by energy companies. They make money. Yeah. One of the things that's hard to understand, and I've explained some of this as I'm not an energy math expert like my co-host here, but one of the things is when you buy energy, and let's say that a nuclear power plant is producing energy for a few cents a kilowatt hour, that then has to be transmitted across transmission lines to your house. And all the people who work at the utility have to make money. The CEO generally gets a massive salary. And the utility is not allowed to make more than a % profit because they're a monopoly. And so you don't have a choice of who you're going to buy your energy from, unless you live in Texas. That's the only place that's different. It does take a long time to overcome.
It takes a long time.
Go ahead.
The advantage of nuclear is after it's constructed and built, which a lot of these plants were built in a different era, so they're not same construction costs we're seeing today. The fuel costs is very, very low for nuclear compared to natural gas or coal. So when it starts to get down to, once you have some of that sunk overhead out of the way after a decade or two in operation, it's very, very inexpensive to actually produce the power. Now there's a lot of overheads, there's security, there's health, there's safety, there's all these other things associated with it. But from just a pure go buy some uranium, go buy some coal, go buy some natural gas, it's surprisingly it's much, much lower for nuclear.
Yeah, you're actually asking questions Mike and I were discussing before.
I know we were just talking about that.
I'm not going to discuss them on the show because I'm not, while I do cover some nuclear stuff as part of this, it's not, the crux of EV world, but it is interesting to see. But one of the things that's changing is traditionally you've built a nuclear reactor at a site because they're so large. And what's happening is this is going to switch to like a mobile home style where it's built in a factory and you build a site for it, but then you bring it on a truck and you put it in place and then you fuel it on site. And so what happens is there's going to be all these economies of scale that are going to make it far cheaper, and there's going to be standardization, just a lot of things, because every nuclear reactor in the world up to date of the 400 nuclear power has basically all been custom built. I mean, it's like buying Ferraris, and this is going to be more like, well, I'm not going to say like Ford Model Ts, to be more like buying a Ford versus a Ferrari. And So it's not that the quality is going to suffer. I mean, if you buy a Ferrari, because everything's custom, when you need a part replaced, I mean, shoot, if you own a Ferrari, your oil change might cost $10,000. I mean, nobody wants to touch it. Your car breaks down, nobody wants to tow it. You can't get a tow truck to come pick your car up because everybody's worried about damaging your car. So there's all these things that have to be done. And this is kind of the thing with nuclear power plants. Everything, yeah, hopefully better than Ferrari frame welds. But this is a thing. They're trying new fuels in the older reactors, and some of them can't handle the newer fuels. And some of the newer fuels, while they burn hotter, they are designed to be cooled differently. So, yeah, we're not going to get in the weeds on that today. I talk about that too much to my own team. But anyways, yeah, but it's really a big difference in what we're going to see. And this whole thing on the moon, I mean, it's not like they're going to build Chernobyl on the moon, and that's what people want to hype fear. I was looking actually, my Professor Tratner friend, who is one of the original founders of Earth Day over in Hawaii. He was one of the original founders worldwide for Earth Day, but he lives over in Hawaii. And he was sending me an article on geothermal, and all these people were protesting geothermal. And I'm like, I was so confused. So I had to go into one of my programs and ask it to do some research. Why is geothermal controversial? And some of them, some of it is you're going to upset the volcano gods. Okay. And that was one of the big ones. I mean,
it's just one of those we just don't do that. Because I would think like in Hawaii, I mean, it's one of those like, gosh, you're sitting on a volcano. Like there's got to be so much potential.
Right. Well, they've done geothermal and lava destroyed the place.
Okay.
So one of the arguments is that you're bringing all of these toxic gases up through the pipes and into the atmosphere. And it's like, I'm sure they're trying to do things to mitigate that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm a fan of geothermal. It sounds like a great idea, right? If it's free energy,
yeah,
and there's some way to tap it, great. We talk about this all the time. All these forms of energy are tools. It's not the one we'd like to see go away is coal. If we were going to talk about one of them going away, coal is just not good for humans. You can have your whatever opinion you want on LNG. I think LNG is going to be around for at least another 50 years. Coal the world will be at peak, isn't going to be at peak coal until 2030. And then it should start slowly diminishing. The U.S. was at peak coal back, the 80s?
Probably.
Yeah, we're down to 18% of our
I don't know. I'd have to look. I bet early 2000s. I bet
really? They were still building new plants.
That wind hadn't made its inroads at that point. I mean, coal was still that we weren't making new nuclear. Coal was really the new power plant of choice even back then.
Yeah, I mean, coal's not good for the workers. It's not good for the people who live around the places. Not good for people that are around the power plants that use the coal. And there's LNG is cleaner, fairly similar in cost.
Hmm?
Once again, it's a fossil fuel or whatever, but it's way cleaner than the other. And then, but those are baseload solutions for electricity.
Yeah. It is. And what we talk about all the time, I mean, it took 100+ years to build what we have. It's not going to change overnight. It takes time. I know, not staying above on some of the nuclear stuff. I do think that's where I would like to see the industry go from a grid planning perspective. But it has its own challenges to go through. So hopefully those new technologies are going to start making an appearance out there, because I think it checks a lot of boxes. When everything's said and done.
So Lucid's kind of an interesting company in that they make the most energy efficient electric motors for EVs. They had one we saw the other day. It drove over 1,000 kilometers. In fact, it broke 700 miles actually on a single charge. And so they really have, it's not that the batteries are enormous so much, man, they are pretty good size, but it's just that the motors are super efficient and the cars have very little drag. They're very
luxury cars.
Yeah, and they're expensive too. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, so Lucid now has access to 23,500 Tesla superchargers for the Lucid Airs, using an NACS adapter, significantly increasing driving range. That was an interesting statement to put in there. I think whoever wrote the PR release probably wasn't that up on some things. But yeah, so what's happening is Tesla is sort of slowly taking over everybody else's charging networks, as everybody adopts, because everybody knows they do a better
whether
job
it's Tesla or whoever else. That's what we want to start to see, is just standardization on what you offer and how it works, and just the plug itself.
The Solterra and the Busy Forks will work at Tesla if you select Rivian or Ford at the charger.
That's funny.
But anyways, yeah, Lucid's looking decent. This doesn't even include the fact that they're ramping up their manufacturing facilities over in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, so they plan on doing stuff there too. So here's something kind of funny. I found this article. Owner satisfaction with new vehicles is up, but not with most EVs. Okay. So this is not exactly probably what you expected. Owner satisfaction with new vehicles is at its highest level in 5 years, according to JD Power. Okay. Gas and hybrids vehicles rank high, but most EVs fell by 17 points. Porsche is officially the highest for satisfaction per the firm's award criteria because of the size of manufacturer it is. Okay. But in reality, Rivian and Tesla had higher scores. But other than Rivian and Tesla, most of the companies didn't do great on the thing. Once again, I always tell people, it's like, you're going to argue about all this crap about EVs that you hear and you don't like or whatever, but you're not talking about Tesla. And most EVs are Tesla.
And that is such a misleading statement at the start of that article, because I get what they're saying. Most by model count, right, most EVs are not. But if you went by volume of the vehicles sold, like most of them are. I have high satisfaction. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's very misleading.
Yeah. So among premium brands, Porsche scored the highest, followed by Land Rover and BMW. They were all way above the industry standard. Jaguar was close behind, followed by Lincoln, Mercedes, Genesis, Cadillac, Lexus, Volvo, Infiniti, Acura, and finally Audi. Rivian ranked ahead of all of them, as did Tesla, but they don't meet JD Power's award criteria to be officially ranked because the two don't permit the survey company to reach out to all of its customers. If they had been ranked, they would have been in first and second. Let's see if it tells me who it didn't like. It actually, the thing did give me like a list of the highest rated. The Ford Super Duty is the highest rated
individual.
This is kind of funny. So these are the highest rated in some of these categories: large heavy duty pickup, the Ford Super Duty, or the Sierra.
Been the number one selling vehicle in that category since the beginning of time. No surprise.
Large light duty pickup. Mm-hmm. This one is not even one I thought would have been an entrant. The Hummer EV pickup.
Really?
Has the highest satisfaction rating. And I'm surprised. I mean, there aren't a whole lot of those. I mean, I've seen them around town. Yeah.
Not many.
Mid-size pickup, number one, the Hyundai Santa Cruz. Okay. I know somebody has one of those. Ford, they're nice looking.
Paying attention, Ford. There you go.
Yeah. Followed by the Chevy Colorado and the Nissan Frontier. Yeah, Ford didn't hit in that. The number one minivan, despite the other, Volkswagen ID Buzz. And there aren't many of those. There's just a few of
Not
those
many of
around
those
town, followed by the Toyota Sienna and the Kia Carnival.
I would have pinged Sienna at the top, but
Yeah. Let's see if there's any other big surprises. Give me just a second here. Midsize SUV, Nissan Murano came in number one. And then followed by the Mazda CX-70 and the Jeep Grand Cherokee, which I guess, who knows. Compact premium SUV, BMW X4, Porsche Macan, Jaguar F-Pace.
Based on Porsche being the top, I think people seem to like that vehicle a lot.
Yeah. And what's interesting is for all the financial problems Nissan's having, compact SUV, number one was Nissan Rogue, Buick Envision, Mitsubishi Outlander. Let's see. Sports car, number one, Ford Mustang. But there aren't really a whole lot of sports cars anymore. Oh, premium sporty car, Porsche 911, followed by the Corvette. Let's see. Top overall model, period, BMW X6 SUV. Which, anyways, that's enough of that. But that's all the stuff I wanted to cover today. What we got here? I'm familiar with the CANDU reactors. So Canada has different rules for nuclear. And so they have different rules for grid scale than they do for SMR. And we're hoping the United States adopts something similar sometime soon. I mean, we'll just have to see where that goes. But the United States is having a lot of changes. They're going to take a long time, though. Mike and I sat in on a Department of Energy Zoom where they were talking about trying to get some reactors in place by July of next year. And I'm like, wow, that's really speeding up some people's timeline to get some stuff, manufactured. We're going to build these with 3D printers. I mean,
yeah, it was pretty ambitious.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, a lot of the new components for some of the nuclear stuff is going to be 3D printed. I've seen talk about this, how they're using AI and 3D printing and stuff like that to help minimize costs and fix some things. But, it's all a matter of time, right? Technology is increasing. We're making, AI is making people smarter to a certain degree. Certainly making me smarter. It's doing wonders for me. I'll say that. It's definitely
it has its purpose. There's 100% a use for AI.
Yeah. I learned so much so fast. I saved so much time doing research. And you've seen me give a class on a topic that I had just generated all the information. So anyways, yeah. But anyways, folks, I want to thank everybody for chiming in. Folks, we always appreciate the chat, Owen and Paul. People are always welcome to chat. It's funny, most of our people watch from Twitter, and Twitter people are never chatting. That's kind of the purpose of Twitter, right? To chat. Throw us some insults, something. Tell me my forehead's too shiny, or something. I don't know. Anyways, Mike, I will see you next week. And otherwise, folks, I'll be back with Bill tomorrow. Have a great day.